People love to blame someone else. For instance, Jake Steiner loves to blame the optometrist. They don't know anything. They don't know how to do anything. You don't have to look at a Snellen. You don't have to know anything. And that's why optometrists give up. The problem is they're not dealing with a mature, educated intellect of a person who understands that all eyes are dynamic systems, not bad cameras. They never were bad cameras. But to teach certain things in optometry, you have to describe all eyes as defective because they have refractive states. That's jumping to a terrible conclusion, not justified by any experimental data that I know of when I think of the eye's behavior as a sophisticated system. So why does prevention fail? That's because the person has no intellect to understand the eye's behavior. He has no attempt to do so. So here's where I thank Jacob Rafelson, who didn't give up. He had to find a better answer, so he kept on working at it. And he encountered this article, and this is why virtually everybody slightly nearsighted will fail permanently, because they don't understand the eye's dynamic. And at 2040, you have to make your own measurements. And you have to keep on doing it, which of course is what I've been doing. You must make objective measurements of your Snellen and determine your refractive state actually measured as positive. So here's where the failure is. Medical people prescribe something and nobody listens and won't do it. They absolutely will not. So when I talk about the plus lens for prevention when you're 20/20, you don't get it. You want some medical person to tell you what to do, and then you won't do it. So here is what happens. This is Dr. Prentice, who had the idea that the eye is dynamic when actually measured with a retinoscope, and good intellectual understanding of the eye as a dynamic system. So this person had minus one diopter, essentially, effectively both eyes. And so Prentice had the idea of using a plus. Now, the type of plus he used would probably a little less than that. I use plus 2.5. But for reading at 10 inches, I use a plus 4. So what happens? The person actually did it, wore the plus as I'm doing it. And the person was of ordinary intelligence and understood, but he really did not understand what he was doing. So in 6 months, he's getting close to 20/20. And actually 20/40 is pretty good. So he's wearing it. During this time, general health flu, that's a side issue. Other people had similar results. However, it was always Prentice that made the measurement, not the man himself. And I think that's a big failure of prevention. The person needs the intelligence and motivation and his own Snellen, and hopefully designs control systems so he understands that the real eye is a control system and expect it to go from plus to minus simply from close work. At 20/40, if you keep on wearing the plus and monitoring your Snellen, you get your refractive state to change from minus a half diopter to plus a half diopter, positive refraction. And so what happened? Similar results, but each person did not understand what he's doing. If you don't understand what you're doing when you're 20/40, you're not going to do it. It may make logical scientific sense as it does to me, but as it does not make logical sense to you, you're not going to do it. It depends on your engineering education, and when you accept that all eyes at birth are dynamic control systems, not bad cameras. Impossible to induce them to undergo the trial or get out of 20/40, because in the foregone conclusion, okay, this will always fail. The same reason that Kaisu-Vilakari fails, because the person lacks the intelligence to understand it's necessary when you're 20/40, and the person does not make any measurements. It's the same way that Jake Steiner people will fail. They don't know what they're doing. They expect rapid results, and they never look at a Snellen intelligently or with force of character to succeed. This is why I propose a prevention study to be conducted with engineers who design control systems and make their own refractive measurements exactly as I'm doing it. I call it Kepler's method, because you use your own trial lens and you measure a refractive state yourself. A person who won't engage in this or lacks the education to do it will not succeed. It's not possible. But this is exactly the reason why Rupa Wong, who understands this problem of the eye going down when it's 20/20 and stops it when it's going down by keeping her kid's nose off the page. So that's your choice. That's why, in my case of my relatives, I explained this rather completely. I don't know how much I understood, but they always passed the 20/20 line. I put this to the fact that they were more practical and always read at 20 inches and played tennis a lot. So their refractive state measures as positive, and they have their 20/20. How much of this I understood, I really do not know. But because of Rafelson kept after the subject, calling what he's doing a spectacle hobby, because he was curious, that I finally arrive at Prentice, who tried to do something, and you have to ask who failed. Did Prentice fail? Or did the person lacking the intellectual ability to understand the eye's behavior fail because they quit wearing the plus when they were at 20/40 going to 20/20? Now, this is a question you're going to have to ask yourself. I certainly did. I can certainly see engineers who were measuring and going from 20/40 range to 20/20 keep on wearing the plus after they get to 20/20. This situation is very nearly identical what Rupa Wong has woken up to. If you want prevention, you got to keep your kid's nose off the page, and they have to understand it that way. Just a general, "I'll get your nose off the page, kid," will never work. Her children understand how important it is when they have 20/20 to keep their nose off the page. So Jake Steiner criticizes the optometrist. The optometrist criticized Jake because he doesn't know anything, or he's leveling a lot of accusations against optometrists, and absolutely nothing gets accomplished. Nothing in science, nothing in reality, nothing that's practical. So if you don't like wearing the plus when you're 24, you don't understand what you're doing, don't try to do anything. It's too late. Thank you.